Hello, folks. Welcome back to Out of Spec, and we have some news on the horizon. We all know Chevy is reintroducing the Chevrolet Bolt, which is many people's favorite car. I've realized a lot of people love the Bolt ever since it came out, first debuted around 2016. Then it had a mild refresh at some point, but it was still not really a spicy EV. There wasn't really much to be impressed by as far as powertrain, charging speed, especially. I mean, you're nowhere near three digits, which is what we completely take for granted now. So we know some stuff has been coming down the pipeline at GM, Chevy specifically, of totally refreshed Bolt with new tech, and that's what a lot of people have been excited about. And today, yesterday, as we're recording this, GM has teased some images finally.
If you look at a Bolt in today's context, it doesn't seem that impressive. You're totally right. Low charging performance, it wasn't particularly, fast or anything like that. I mean, it was actually pretty fun to drive and it was pretty fast considering the size of the car, but it's no Model S Plaid, Taycan Turbo GT or anything like that. However, the early Bolts did give something that no electric car had done up until that point, which was really good range for a reasonable cost. And you would typically be stuck in the like Leaf or, that type of thing where you'd get, 150 miles on a charge. And then the Bolt was just like, here's a big ass battery and pretty good efficiency, really good efficiency. And, high one pedal driving with regen paddle. And like, it was a really nice car. And my dad actually had a first gen Bolt and he loved it. So many Bolt owners loved their cars. Bolt owners have road tripped across the country, across Canada, even with the 55 kilowatt peak charging speeds. And look, it was doable. Yeah, technology has moved on. I think for a car with around 300 miles of range, I really would want to see 150 kilowatt charging minimum. And I'm so excited about the new generation. So sorry to interrupt, but let's get back to what you were talking about.
No, yeah, exactly. And because of all the anticipation, I think that's why GM's or Chevy's new photos, which I'll show now on the screen, have garnered a lot of interest. People have been eager to see what it looks like. Is it going to look super crazy? Because one of people's issues was the tail lights of the outgoing Bolt. A lot of people complain about it. I'll see if I can find a photo here. Of course, they're all front photos, but there's kind of a
Oh, but
grainy
that's
looking.
not the issue. You need to find a post refresh Bolt taillight.
Okay. Yeah, because
It's on there. If you just zoom out of that a little bit, Jordan, and yeah, here, I'm going to add it back to the stage. That right there, that car and driver photo on the left,
yep.
that's the post refresh one.
Yeah.
Yep. I think why were people complaining because the brake lights are in the bumper and not on
I
the
hate.
actual brake light area?
Yep, that's one of the big complaints. So the redesign looked cool, I think. Like the taillights looked funky in the first Bolt, and the redesign made it look just a bit more like a normal car, at least a Chevy normal car, taking their design language. And yeah, the taillights versus brake lights were kind of in different locations and just kind of acted funny. So when I looked at
What
people's
was that?
complaints,
Was that for the normal Bolt or just the EUV?
it might have been just EUV, because you're right. They did introduce a newer, slightly bigger version, which is also what people think the new one might be. People have wondered, will Chevy have a line of bolts like an EV and EUV, maybe even something else, or will they just do more of the EUV situation because that's what seems to sell really well? People want kind of still a compact, but still a crossover rather than just a hatchback car. So that's what I think some of the photos kind of look like
Well,
is
I think what's needed more than the size, Jordan, is price point. I think people need cheap, reliable electric transportation. Now, we focus a lot on our channels on leasing electric cars, and there's a reason they lease out really well. You can go lease an Equinox for like under $200 a month right now in most states. Really
yep.
cool. There are many people who are against leasing, can't qualify for leasing, don't want to tie up their credit for whatever reason. And purchasing a new electric car is enticing to them, but at a very reasonable cost. So we tend to, we talk about MSRP a lot, but then we're also like, well, you can lease this car for like nothing because you should not buy a $60,000 electric car when you can lease it for $299 a month. If you can get a cheap lease and a cheap purchase price and still have a very usable, nice electric car, that's the ticket right there. Because the Bolt has always been a pretty utilitarian car. It was never, luxury appointed or anything. I think people just want cheap, cheerful transportation. Europe has it, like with the Renault R5 being a massive success. ID3s are everywhere there. I know their sales hasn't been great recently, but that type of vehicle, we don't have anything like that in our market except for the first generation Leaf. Like
Right.
Model 3s are still pretty pricey. The new cheap Model Y based Tesla thing could be really cool. We don't know what that's going to be, but still, so many people need a Tesla alternative. And I think the Bolt's going to hit the sweet spot. It did before. It has the opportunity to do it again. And Jordan, the funny thing about the EUV, which was that larger version, it actually had less cargo capacity on paper.
Which is really funny because they added more space to the seating compartment, wasn't it? Right?
Well, it's technically bigger, but the way that they measure SAE interior compartment space showed it had less space on the inside than the standard Bolt because it had to do with where they did the height measurement, and the height
Yeah.
measurement was like in a weird spot in the EUV. And yeah, I always thought that was funny, but it actually was bigger, more useful. I don't see really many Bolts or EUVs on the road at all anymore. I used to see them all over the place, but I don't see them very often.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm curious how it'll come in alongside or under the, Kia Niro, Hyundai Kona. Those would kind of be direct, more affordable competition, but those are also somewhat outdated at this point. They're
They're
kind of the
outdated and still too expensive.
Yeah, for what they are. And surprisingly, when I saw the Subaru Uncharted, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna, undercut the Kona and Niro, but be better than it." But it's still not going to be super cheap. Like that's still not what you would call an economy EV, and that's what I think this is going to try to come in at. So we don't know anything specs wise, but we do know that it's going to feature what an LFP battery,
Well, I don't know
which
if we know that for sure. We can guess. So let's just pull up those photos really quick. So let's see what Chevy announced yesterday or shared. First of all, everyone in the comment section on Instagram is asking for a new Camaro and not a Bolt, but our world is EVs. We've been asking for a new Bolt. I remember I went to GM's headquarters with Ryan in a Bolt, and we screamed at Mary Barra's office to not cancel the Bolt. Until this came out. Now here we are. It's really actually kind of happening. So it looks like it's done. It's going to have a NAX port, which will handle AC and DC charging, which is the correct way to implement a NAX port. Nissan and Mercedes should take note.
yep.
And what else, Jordan? What other photos did they post?
Not many, just a picture of the wheel, which looks pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, it looks
Um,
like the last gen wheel.
yeah, the Nax port, the tail light, I do think it's going to have that. I think it's going to look kind of like shrunken down Equinox. Like the styling cues to me, the kind of, I don't know, dimpled grill looking thing, with the real grill being below that. The headlights, it's all kind of just slim, streamlined, not very interesting. There's not much like character about it. It's just going to be basic, smaller than an Equinox type EV. And to undercut the Equinox, which starts in the like low 30s, this is going to have to be like maybe under 30K starting.
Dude, if
Like
they can
what
make this
price?
25, imagine if it's a $25,000 electric car.
That'd be awesome. I mean, what specs and price would you need to have to to beat there? I guess what specs would you have to be okay with having the cheapest possible car?
Well, I think because this is coming in at the entry level market, they really should not focus on too many luxury options here. I think people just kind of want a basic car to drive around,
Yep.
and maybe on the top spec you include Super Cruise. I think at minimum you do need like that lane centering stuff that they have,
Yeah.
which is new for model year 26. GM has lane centering not on pre-mapped roads. I think that should just be standard across the board because
Right.
so many other automakers have that. But I think in terms of like price range, charging, all that stuff, I'd like to see a small and a big battery. I'd like
Yep.
to see all LFP options. I think they could get away with like a 37 to 42 kilowatt hour base battery that would give them roughly 150 miles of range
Yeah.
EPA. maybe even better if it's very efficient, which Chevy has made some very efficient cars. We actually own the Chevy Spark Electric, which you just drove, on the Fizz, and it's a fantastic car. I had it out on track yesterday. The fact that that can charge so fast
Yep.
is unbelievable. That car is 0 to 90% in how long? Like 18 minutes?
Something like that. Yeah, it was like 30 minutes 0 to full, which not many cars do that.
Yeah, insane. I mean, that's like truly better than Taycan charging performance with a small battery, and it's old. So we know they can do like some cool stuff. And for whatever reason, that Spark just was amazing. So again, I think 150 miles EPA range, somewhere around 40 kilowatt hour LFP. You can full charge it every day, beat the crap out of it. We need like a great municipal utility rental car for city use, urban use from Chevy. Not everything needs to be super long range and fast charging. Charging
Yeah.
performance on that, I really think, I focus a lot on time to charge, not so many miles per minute added. But I do think like an up to 90% charge, because again, I think a lot of people are going to live in apartment complexes without home charging. A lot of fleets are going to be considering these that don't have level 2 charging, for example. And so I think DC charging is almost more important for cheap electric cars than they are for the Lucid owner who can level 2 charge in their garage every day. And
Right.
so I really want to see let's say 5 to 90% charge in under 30 minutes. I think that's a key metric.
Yeah, let people, public charge these who can't have a way to home charge, and also being LFP, being able to use that full amount of range. It's rough to come out with like an NMC battery that has 150-mile range, because then if you're charging it to 80% every day, then that's realistically 120-mile range, and that just is hard for a lot of people to accept. You could totally live with that range. Now that we've lived with some cheap EVs, it's like, wow, we can really work with this. And even your smart electric has shown how we don't really need that much range. Most people don't. Daily average commute is 40 miles, but it is nice to have a bit more than maybe what you need. And the outgoing Bolt, I mean, that one had 250 miles ish, depending on what you could drive
It
that. I
actually
mean,
had way more range than most people ever needed. So that was
yeah,
what, 66 kilowatt hours? What was the battery pack capacity? Because they had two batteries in the post refresh Bolt. They
right.
had, well, first of all the early ones had to be replaced because of fire risks, or at least there was like a period in time where if you qualified, they would replace it. Now they just monitor it. I don't know. But there was an early battery and then a refresh battery that had a bit more capacity in it. And we have videos on both of those cars. Ryan's had them. But if
Yep.
you could look up what that was, I feel like it was mid 60 kilowatt hours, somewhere around there. So let's say
Yeah.
they can put like a 68 kilowatt hour pack in this thing and have it
It'd be
charge at 175 kilowatts to 200 kilowatts peak, and then have a good curve. That would be amazing.
Yeah, well, that'd be over 250 miles of range, and yeah, totally usable specs. So this really is could push the bar in theory on what a cheaper EV has to be, because a lot of people think you just have to spend huge money to get decent specs. We've had these kind of older, like we said, Kona, Nero things that aren't pushing the bar at all. It's kind of like old tech just left aside because, well, it's more affordable. And I think those largely can exist with good lease deals. Like you said, no one's really buying those at the MSRP. So, a lot of things will depend on what this comes in price wise and the specs. And people are going to be looking at this with a magnifying glass because, yeah, like you said, the fire issues, the safety warnings around the old Bolts. There's still parking garages here in Boulder that say no bolts allowed. So
Yeah, which is
they
crazy too, because statistically it was so rare even for that car to catch on fire.
right. So the fact that the Bolt has that history tied to it, they have to be really careful with making sure this releases with no problems, or at
I
least
agree.
nothing major.
The name has been tarnished a little bit. It needs, this next gen. The thing is, I really think this is going to cannibalize massively sales of Equinox and Blazer. First of all, I think Equinox cannibalizes Blazer sales because Equinox is better than Blazer, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
really like the Equinox. I think it's a great electric car. It's I just met a guy yesterday or 2 days ago, 3 days ago, who drove his to Alaska from here in
Yep.
North Carolina. Like,
Sick.
it doesn't charge great. It's super low voltage. It's blah, blah, blah. We can complain. They're great cars. They drive really well. They ride really well. I remember you and I went on the first drive of that car. We're like, this thing is awesome.
Yeah.
And so if they can get some of that magic in the Bolt, but then they really got to focus on the price. They already have a pretty reasonably priced electric car with the Equinox that's roomy, that's big, and whatever. This should be cheap, cheerful, just get the job done, fairly utilitarian, but in a sort of fun and quirky way. That's something GM's always been missing. And I feel like that's something Renault figured out. I'm really sold on this Renault R5 because they've got a baguette holder, they've got cool materials, they've got great styling, and it's cheap and cheerful. And same with the ID3 to an extent. Yeah, they had a little bit lesser quality material in there, but still the ID3 like made me happier to be in it. And it was a fun car. And, I think they look great. So I really think the Bolt has to tap into that. On the topic of what I want to see from the big battery pricing, I think they really need to start at, 24,999. Tax credit, again, is pretty much gone as far as we know. So, we're talking raw numbers here. So 24,999 would be a huge win for the entire EV market. And then I think maxed out, it can't go above 35.
Yep.
I think that's the region they need to play in. What I think is going to happen is it's going to start at 35 and go to 50.
There's just they can't do that. Then they would just be like, well, why get the Bolt? Just get the Equinox, which will be a little bit bigger, a little bit better. It's just I really think it has to start under 30. If the Equinox starts at like 33, then this has to start high 20s.
I think mid 20s. I mean, I really think our market is begging for a cheap and cheerful electric car. And this is the opportunity. They've made small electric cars before. I mean, the Spark and the previous gen Bolt, both fantastic cars. They've just, now that, the supply base is matured, electric cars are easier to live with in urban environments. Every city has DC charging now. It's time to get a small battery, cheap, entry level point into the market. They could own the low end of the market because I don't think Tesla is going to go as cheap as they need to go with this new cheap car. That's just my gut feeling. Yeah. And I really think it needs to start with a 2. We need cars in the $20,000 range. The cheapest new car sold in America is now over $20,000.
Yep. So if you can get an EV in that 20 to 30 grand range, ideally mid 20s, that brings it closer and closer to economy combustion car, and that gets it in the hands of more people. So
absolutely.
Simple math.
And if you can home charge, then your overall cost of ownership is actually less. And how cool would it be to have a lower total cost of ownership than the cheapest new gas car that you can buy? That's when it starts to make sense.
That'd be really cool. I think that'd be a really fun experiment. Also, whenever it comes out, we could do that. We could live with both for like a couple weeks and see the cost of general ownership, and we could factor in maintenance and stuff too. But the other thing I see all over, we saw in the Instagram comments, but also when I was looking at Reddit, a lot of extreme loyalty on CarPlay and Android Auto. People that are saying they loved their Bolt for having it. They won't buy a new GM EV because of the lack of CarPlay and Android Auto. It'd be interesting to see if they threw the work truck screen into this, which is just like smaller, cheaper, almost like a legacy GM screen. But I don't know. I don't know if I see them appeasing that level of enthusiast audience.
Look, I actually like GM software because they let me put on the screen everything I would want from CarPlay, which would be Waze and Spotify. And then their in-car routing is actually good. They use Google Maps already with route plan built in and preconditioning and all that stuff. So I think that works for me. I guess the only complaint I've heard that they don't support is text message support. But like if you're doing voice to text for text message, like that's just nasty. That's no way to live.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that anyways.
I just hate voice control in general, but people have their preference. So that's why I've always struggled with them. Like as not a CarPlay or Android Auto person, I still don't understand why they could ever make the argument to remove them because so many people do want those features.
Well, Lyric still has it for some reason, and will continue to have it until who knows when.
Yeah, the software supports it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can buy if you buy a GM product that doesn't have CarPlay, there's a module swap you can put in from an
Yep.
aftermarket company, White something or other, can't remember the name, and then it works.
Yeah. So that's what you need, maybe. We'll see. We know this will probably be built in the Kansas City, Kansas area, like whatever that region town is called, in that factory. And roughly 2027 model year, I guess, is what the first one will be. So we should expect to see it unveiled by the end of this year, going into production next year. Yeah, a lot of us are still waiting with bated breath on what this thing actually is going to be. But showing these photos on Chevy's part, I don't know, kind of a nice little teaser to get some people interested, but also a lot of people that are just like, "Where's my damn Camaro?" and "Where's CarPlay?" So I
Yeah, but
don't
it's
know.
getting exciting, Jordan, because I just remembered I already went and made a video with the new Leaf, and you're
Yep,
going to drive it soon, aren't you?
yep, in about a month and a half. So
Okay, so like new Leaf is here. We don't know the pricing yet, but new
yep,
Leaf, new Bolt. It's 2011 all over again, or 2014 all over again, whatever.
I know it's so exciting.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
getting good.
let us know what you guys think in the comments. What things you think it needs, or what things you're already rolling your eyes around. What worries you have. We'll see you down in the comments, and we'll see you guys with more updates. If they fully unveil this thing, we'll of course jump into all the specs and everything we know at that time. But until then, thanks for watching.